right, we're now live. Hi Periscope, welcome to the California Academy of Sciences in San Francisco's Golden Gate Park. My name's Laurel and we are a public museum and research institution, and we're currently hanging out in the Animal Health Lab to introduce you to 3 really special animals. I'm going to start with the humans, even though you can see one you're probably even more interested in. On your right is Piper Dwight. She's a biologist with the Academy's Steinhardt Aquarium. And on the left is Freeland Dunker, the Academy's longtime veterinarian, and the #1 guy you want to invite to parties because he's got amazing stories. Okay, so for the third introduction, which I will zoom in on in a moment, I'm going to hand it over to Piper. Piper, can you introduce this little guy and tell us why he's special?
I can. This is our youngest bird here. He was just hatched. He's a male penguin. He's a African penguin we have here at the Academy. He was hatched on January 10th, so he's just a few weeks old, probably about 4 weeks old, and he was just hatched here. He's about to get ready to get an exam, and we're going to do that for you guys, I believe, in just a few minutes. But he's a really special bird because we belong to a group called the Species Survival Plan here. It's a group that we want to make sure that we're doing our part in conservation. So what we do is we want to make sure that our genetic variants here in the population here in captivity is doing well and healthy, so we don't have to take any birds out of the wild.
Can you tell us a little bit more about their natural habitat, where they live, and what that looks like?
Yeah, so these guys are South African birds. They're from a place just south of here. It's not here in California. We do try to replicate that environment for you guys here. If you guys have been to the aquarium, you guys can see that it's modeled after Boulder Beach in South Africa. I was just in there just a few minutes ago. The temperature is pretty similar to outside here. It's about 65 degrees in the air temp, and then it's a little chillier. It's about 55 in the water. So these guys are from a different environment, but we try to have a very similar one here for them in the aquarium.
And so why is the Species Survival Plan necessary for this species?
Oh, it's very necessary. We try to do our part in making sure that conservation is what we're expressing to the public and getting you guys to help us with that. These guys are really not doing very well in the wild. We've got a lot of things happening out there that are really affecting them. So Species Survival Plan works with a number of different species. We try to do our part with this species and a few other species here in the aquarium. But it's something that we find it's very necessary to get those genetics and the bloodlines right for these guys so that we have a healthy population for the future and for the public to see.
Fantastic. Okay, so this little guy is how old now again?
He was born on January 10th, so I should have done my math, but he's about 4.5, 5 weeks.
6 months, yes.
Yeah.
All right. And so another thing that's happening for this little guy today is he is getting a name, and I would like to thank everybody who kind of gave us inspiration or suggestions on social media, especially the person who suggested Commander Fuzzpants. I want you to know I fought for you. But Parker, tell us what we arrived at.
So yeah, the decision was made that this little man is going to be named Parker after Golden Gate Park, which is here where Steinhardt is, he's living here in Steinhardt, and we are in Golden Gate Park.
That's wonderful. It's also a nice nod to the 100th anniversary of the National Park Service, which happens this year too. So
Yes.
There's that. Okay, so whoa, Parker.
Coming at ya.
Yep.
Parker is due for a checkup, and Freeland, can you, so Freeland's going to walk us through that, and everybody who's watching, you're welcome to ask questions while that happens, and maybe just start by telling us what you're looking for at this point.
Okay. Just to start, my name is Freeland Dunker and veterinarian here at the Academy, and what we're going to do is an exam. This is one of the multiple exams that we do on these guys. When Parker was first born or first hatched and being cared for by the parents, we took the opportunity to do what we call a neonatal exam, or just a little baby exam, to make sure that his umbilicus is in good shape, there weren't any difficulties or any problems with the hatching, and that we have a good healthy chick that's being cared for by the parents. So now our next step is the chick is with us now and is going to go through fish schooling, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And this exam now just is another stage of his life to make sure that he's ready for that and that he has developed to that capability. So what we'll do is we start with just a general exam. We look at the eyes, we look at the mouth, we open up the beak, we listen to the heart, listen to the lungs, check his wings or his flippers on both sides, and also his legs and his feet, and just make sure that he's healthy enough to then go through the fish school that we'll talk about. So what we'll get started here is what we're going to look first is just do an ophthalmic exam or look at his eyes.
Okay.
Down.
And Piper, we got a question. Someone wanted to know if his parents are here at the academy.
They are. His parents are living in the colony up in the exhibit. His parents are the white banded pair in the exhibit.
Turn him around. No, to the other side. Look at his head, not moving along too quick there.
Still doing the eyes.
Doing the front end.
And what are you looking for there?
Basically what I'm looking for is any lens problems or any damage to the cornea, any malformations that I may not have picked up on my first neonatal exam.
Okay.
So then we looked at the eyes, which look great, and look in the mouth, make sure that his mucous membranes or the color of his mouth is nice and pink, that we don't have any evidence of anemia or low red cell count. And just kind of check him out. We'll palpate down the neck. And then what I'm going to do is listen to his heart and listen to his lungs.
Great. And so we're getting some questions from people who are curious if he's
Okay, I have to wait. I can't hear right now.
Sorry. Right.
And I'll just kind of palpate his abdomen here. Let me grab a little bit here. And just check that we don't have any issues with any of his liver, his GI tract, fetal spine. Okay. Yeah, you had a question?
Yeah, someone was curious whether he's pretty acclimated to being handled by people at this point.
Yeah, it's an evolution. Once he was taken for the fish school, he's been going through the process, so he's more acclimated to the handling. You are correct.
Mm-hmm.
And then we look at the flippers. When they're born, the flippers are just like rubber. They're very thickened. They don't have the rigidity. I'd say this past week, these flippers have gained the rigidity that's needed for swimming. And definitely, at the time when they're born, they're not capable of swimming. So we're getting closer.
Okay. And Parker was born here at the academy. That's correct, right?
That is correct. That is correct. And so now what we're going to do is look at the feet, which look really good. Mm-hmm. There's no evidence of any irritation. We always are cognizant or aware that our exam has a good footing and a good flooring, that we don't irritate the bottoms of the feet. Mm-hmm. And that's something that's really important when they're here. And we'll look at the back. I'll kind of palpate the back. They also have a little gland called a preen gland that is basically capable of them for waterproofing. Well, they'll go back and right now he has a downy coat, which he's not waterproofed at this point, but once the animal or the bird gets the, I know you're hungry, gets his plumage in, then he'll start to oil that and make himself waterproof. So we check that gland, make sure it's not impacted, that it's in good shape. So that's pretty much what we got. Looks like a good healthy chick, and I think we'll be ready to move on to his next step.
Okay, fantastic.
Sure.
And for people just joining us, I want to remind them or highlight the fact that Parker is part of our species survival plan, which helps to protect the genetic diversity of the species because they are so endangered in the wild. Okay, and so you mentioned fish school. I wanted to ask a few more questions about that. Can you tell us what that process is like?
So what we're going to do next is, when these guys are hatched here, we'll allow them to be on exhibit for a little bit. Then they necessitate us to get them to feed from humans, because obviously we don't feed them directly live fish into the exhibit. So what we do is we prepare them fish, and we get them ready to start handling that fish on their own and from humans. So that's like that guest was asking if they're ready, if they're acclimated to humans handling them. Yes, and they're also acclimated to us feeding them. So we have to start that at a pretty young age.
And individual feeding is very important in our husbandry here. Mm-hmm. The fish, each bird is individually fed. We determine how much each bird eats. We monitor that, to make sure that they stay in a good weight range. if we can also determine any illnesses, disease, by how well they accept the fish, and if they're eating or not eating, as opposed to just what we call free feed, where you just throw the fish in the water and everybody comes and eats. So every bird is tracked by what it eats throughout its life.
And how much is he eating at this point?
So he's gaining weight right now. So I weighed him this morning. He was about 1.6 kilograms. So we're going to feed him about 10% of that weight. So I'm giving him, what we do is we provide them, if you guys are probably watching on the Periscope, you guys have seen us feed them capelin and herring. So what we do is we take that same fish that we feed them, we give them a little bit of a smaller fish so that he can handle taking it, and we do a small amount of his weight. So we do that about 2 to sometimes 3 times a day.
Oh, okay, wow.
And that's 10% of his body weight. So that's like us, we weigh some more than others, but let's say 150 pounds, that'd be 15 pounds of food 3 times a day.
Wow, okay. Okay, and people watching, you are welcome to write in with questions. We can ask too, so in terms of the food, I know the food that we feed is sustainable, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, and then part of their difficulties in the wild, does it have to do with the ability to find food or find enough food?
Oh yes, absolutely. So that's one of the reasons why, one of the things that we can do, that people at home can do, is to make sure that we are fishing sustainably and eating fish that we consume, getting sustainably caught fish. So that's what we do with these guys. We get sustainably caught, raised fish. That's something comparable to what they would to eat in the wild, but it's not, because these guys would eat things like sardines in the wild. Obviously, humans eat that. So where there's overfishing in the wild, we can stop that here by feeding them something very similar.
Great, yeah. Okay, so we're getting requests for a close-up. Not surprising. We can do both. And then, all right, let's say hello. Hello. Another question, someone's asked if penguins form bonds with the caretakers.
They definitely can. These guys, we want to make sure that we are creating a relationship with these guys where they know to feed from us. They know that we are here to work with them. We definitely don't do anything here. This handling that you guys see is not something that we continue to do throughout their life. Okay. These guys won't always stay here. They will go to different zoos and aquariums, but it's important that they have bonds within their colony. We don't want to have any sort of bonding with humans. That would just debilitate their survival here.
It's more of like an association. The biologists are associated with food.
Yes.
Great.
That's as opposed to a bonding, it's more association.
Great. And is he ready for breakfast?
Yeah, he's ready. You guys want to watch a little bit of that? We'll see if he's hungry. So you may have heard him doing a little begging vocalization. So what we have here is the 2 types of fish that we provide him, these guys here in the exhibit. So it's a capelin. Caplin's a smaller fish. So we'll see if he'll just take it, which he definitely will. So he'll take it down, he'll take it, the full fish, which is what we obviously want him to do. And sometimes if he's not stimulated to eat, we'll do a behavior for these guys, which is similar to what their parents would do to make sure, get them ready to take something down. So he'll take a herring, a capelin, we'll make sure he consumes it all. And then we will make sure he gets it down before he's ready for another fish. But yes, like I said, so I weighed these guys out before. This is almost 180 grams today. We offered him like a little bit less, a little bit more than 10% because he's growing. So if he's ready to take one.
And that kind of gulping motion you see, how does the fish actually move down their throat?
So these guys have really awesome structures within their beaks that allow them, if they weren't here eating frozen fish, they would be capturing live fish, obviously. So they have these comb-like structures within their beak that would allow them to take their fish and those scales wiggling down and to be able to catch it and to harpoon it with that strong beak as well. But so he'll be able to just kind of gulp it, shovel it down.
And it's kind of a one-way path. So these papillae are little cornified structures basically are in a way that as the fish moves, it can't go back. And so it's a one-way path.
And we'll see if he can take this one guy more. And he's ready.
All right.
There he goes.
There he's all ready for a nap.
So when, I guess one of the last questions is he's ready for fish school, or he soon will be ready for fish school, is that right?
This is
fish school right now.
Oh, this is fish school.
This
Okay,
is
sorry.
him taking fish from keepers.
Got it. And then as far as the swimming goes, does he actually have to learn swimming, or is that something that comes instinctively?
No, it comes instinctively.
Okay.
It's mainly just being aware of that he has the feather coat that's waterproof to be able to swim, and that his flippers that we talked about are rigid enough to allow him to swim.
Mm-hmm.
It is supervised swimming, to make sure that he doesn't get into any trouble. But
Right.
usually, you'll know they'll have their juvenile feather coat will be in. You'll notice they'll be waterproof. They'll use the pruning gland we talked about to oil their feathers so that they're waterproof. And when he's ready to go, he goes. And I would say that, Mother Nature, tells him when it's time. And I would say I've not noticed ever any problems with them swimming.
Right.
It's just a matter of them then getting used to how to get out of the pool.
Yes.
Getting in the pool is the easy part. Getting out, maybe some challenging, and that's really neat to learn. That one needs to be supervised.
Okay, great. And I guess our last question, unless more come in from the audience right now, is when people who visit the Academy will be able to meet Parker.
That's it'll depend. Right now he's, like I said, we're doing his fish school right on. That can take quite a while for these guys. We also want to make sure we do these exams and make sure that they're developing healthfully and that they're able to go on exhibit. He will definitely go on exhibit. He'll, like we said, once he learns how to swim, and he'll just acclimate back in with the colony.
And, again, right now you saw that, Piper was very successful with the association with feeding, and he ate very well, but we have a number of biologists that care for these birds. And so all the biologists have to have this association with the birds. So the biologists will all rotate through, and they make sure that everybody has the needed association. So it takes time.
Okay. And when Parker is ready to be seen, can you tell us a little bit more about the colony he'll be joining? How many birds are there and how many mated pairs?
So that changes. That'll fluctuate throughout in a year. Right now he'll go back onto the colony, depending on who's up there, who may be back of house, who may be traveling. About 13 to 18 birds. We've got quite a few pairs up there, and you guys can definitely see those pairs. They're associated by those wingbands that they have.
Neat.
Yeah, I would say call our fighting weight or our exhibit capacity is about 20 birds.
Okay.
And so we, like we talked about with SSP and exchanges of birds for breeding purposes, we may go as low as 11 birds, we may be up to 20 birds, but we try not to go any more than 20 birds.
Okay. And Parker is not the first penguin to be born here at the new Academy, is he?
No, he's not. He was so I believe he's our 6th bird hatched here at this Steinhardt location. So that's a great, like we were talking about that species survival plan. That's what we really are pushing for. So that's a great number for us. We just keep going up.
Excellent. Okay, great. Thank you both so much. Unless there's anything else you want to add, we'll say goodbye.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Bye. Just kidding, we're still here. Hang on. Look it down.